Hello, Sharon Hurst here. Welcome to the garden on a lovely sunny afternoon. It's beautiful today, so I thought that we'd start out here just for a few minutes. So it's you and me and the ducks next door. So you just have to bear with the bit of noise every now and again. I thought today that we'd have a little chat about colour. There's a lot of nonsense talked about colour. Some of it's very boring. Lots of people start to yawn as soon as they hear the word and think, oh no, not another tutorial. I don't want to do that today. I want to just have an informal natter about colour and what it can do for us and what it means to us as artists. For me, it's the thing that makes my world rock, to be honest with you. I love it, as do most of us. And I find that knowing what it does and how it works is really quite important to me. I'd like to walk you through a few exercises that I've done. We'll go back in the studio in a minute and have a look and show you how I use it when I first buy it, what I do with it, how I get to know it, how we introduce ourselves to each other indeed. I've then got a couple of really interesting little facts that I want to impart, so it's worth waiting till the end of this little bit of video. Only a shorty, about 15 minutes, but at the end I've got some really interesting facts to share. Talking about facts, mauve. Did you know Queen Victoria absolutely fell in love with the colour when it was first introduced? Fell in love with it, wanted huge amounts of her wardrobe all dyed with this gorgeous colour. And so of course the rest of the world, well, I suppose in those days it would have been the Empire, wouldn't it? Everybody else had to have mauve, had to have it because the Queen was wearing it. How exciting could that be? And one prominent politician, I think he was, made the comment that England had been absolutely covered in purple measles because all of the ladies of a certain age were all wearing this purple colour. So that's quite interesting. Little facts like that. Every now and again, when I go shopping, if I'm out and about and I'm treating myself to some bits and pieces for the studio, or if I'm online, oh that's terrible, isn't it, being online, I say, I'll have one of those and one of those. Where does restraint go? Anyway, that's another story. When I'm out and I'm buying my bits and pieces, I do like every now and again, I probably do it once or twice a year, to pick up one or two odd tubes of paint. Something I look at and think to myself, what would I do with that? Never used it before, don't know how it works. I'm going to buy that and I'll treat myself and see what I can do with it. I've done that with Quinacridone Gold, and many of you who know me will know that that's one of my all-time favourites. I also discovered, have you tried Perylene Maroon? Beautiful, beautiful red colour. That's how I discovered that. Just, what's this? I'll try it. It's worth doing. I mean, of course, every now and again you get the most appalling mistake and you use it and you put it down and you think, what am I going to do with that? But does that really matter? Because then, of course, it's useful to you as well to have a colour that you're forced to use because it makes you think in different ways. And I know that sounds bizarre, but trust me, that is a fact. It's true. It's a truism. If you go and buy yourself a colour and you don't really like it, finding ways to use it because you don't want to waste it, it gives you lots of different ideas. So it's worth doing. But you can suddenly find some of the most useful things, useful colours. My latest has been every now and again, when I can, just buying the smallest tube possible of Daniel Smith's, because we know that they're really expensive, don't we? But if you just treat yourself every now and again to one teeny tiny tube and try that out, I've had some wonderful, wonderful discoveries with that. We've all heard about Moon Glow, and my latest affair, there's no other word for it, is Cascade Green. I adore it, absolutely adore it. So shall we just retire to the studio now? We've got the garden and we'll go and have a look in the studio, and I'd like to show you some of my colour trials. So I'm not going to nag you about colour, just want to show you how I trial them before I start to use them to work. Okay, come on, let's go. Hello, here we are. We're back in the studio now, and I wanted to show you, these are my two trials books. They're simple books that you can buy from the supermarket or from stationers with the plastic fold leaves, and then we can put our work inside that. And these are my Bibles really. When I buy anything new, this is where I put my information. I will test drive the different colours and the different paints to destruction with everything that I want to use. So this is polyfiller, and then we have paint, all sorts of things. Just play with it, try it, see what it will do. I want to just move that over so that you can see both pages at once. That's a plan, isn't it? Texture medium, acrylic paint, and this is polyfiller. This is salt up here and rice, and then we have cling film. All good fun to use. Over here, this is Cosmic Shimmer, little tiny round pots of hard mica paint, and of course they're fantastic when you put them on black paper. Absolutely fantastic. They shimmer, they shine. So they're terrific. Like those very much indeed. But you need to be able to try them first. And when I'm painting, I don't always have the time and the patience and the love to want to get the stuff out to try it whilst I'm painting. I just want it now, then, at that moment. Therefore, if I've got all of these bits and pieces on my trials, I know exactly where I want to go with it. These are Daniel Smith. I'm going to come back to those because I've got a more comprehensive mix in the other folder I want to show you. And you see new brushes. This was trialling gold leaf and how fine I could put the glue down to work the gold leaf. I want to show you this because it's quite interesting here. I was asked to paint the cover of a book. It was a novel, and a fantasy novel, and the character, the main character, she was a dragon rider, and as she grew older and more accustomed to her dragons, her eyes, let me bring you in even a little bit more, her eyes became silver, the whites of her eyes, with dragon scales, and the author specifically said that this is how she wanted the eyes to be. Therefore, I'm met with this difficulty of how on earth am I going to produce this with something that really glimmers and glints and shines. And you can see, there you go. And I tried all sorts of things. I used Cosmic Shimmer, the paints that we'd seen further along. And I used, this is real silver leaf here. And then of course that gives you the problem with what sits on top of that to be able to put the shadow in the eyes. And you can see beneath my attempts and my trials with the different types of, this is marker pen with the numbers next to them, and I was able to give the author this piece of paper and say to her, what do you want, what do you prefer? And of course she went with the silver leaf. And the portrait itself, when I was finished, was something else altogether, because of course as you walked past this picture of this girl's head and shoulders, the eyes winked at you, they glinted as you walked by. Quite freaky really, but great fun. Here I'm trialling different black papers to see if either one gave me a more vibrant finish with the colour pencils, and it did, indeed it did. I found that I could get the fine sharp detail here with Derwent Pro Colour, so let me bring you in again so that you can see some of the detail. Fine, you know, lovely light sharp lines with this one, but if I wanted positive, definite, beautiful, brighter colour, then I needed to do this, and this is Derwent Colour Soft, completely different pencil, different makeup, and it gives me this different look. So you need to be able to be aware of what does what. It is worth fiddling and playing with this. Water droplets, how that works, double loading, treble loading even. We're going to do a little bit of a video on that. How about that, little people? Little people with colours. So ink, what can you do with ink? Oh, that looks fun, but my goodness, I tell you, that's difficult to do. That's a whole nother story. But let's have a look at the smaller version of this. Here we go. So in here, I want to show you some of this. This is the Potters. Now the 3 Potters colours, Wedgwood colours. And I've gone into this and I've tried all the things that I can throw at it to see what they do. Just what do they do? I'm moving you about so that you can see where I am with it. Here is dropping water into the colour as it dries. What does it do? When you drop a blob of water here and you put the colour down and you join the lines up, does it run through? Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Here, the pink has partially run through to the water blob. It hasn't gone right in though. This one, you can see that the water has actually run into the blue. It's gone into the blue. See here where it's come in. And this green one is obviously a much heavier pigment, so this here has gone part way. From this I would deduce that the blue is the heaviest pigment because it has not moved at all. In fact, it sucked the water into it. And these two are slightly lighter because they have moved, the pink more than the green. When you put them all together, what do? They mix beautifully. And this is just a little bit of salt, so the pink works really quite nicely with the salt. Look at the granulation. Granulation is when the colour is heavy, heavier than the water, and it sinks and it's sunk down into all the dips in the paper, and this is why you get this kind of scaled effect. Really exciting, very desirable to have. Solid colour, and it covers, it's totally opaque, totally opaque. And then we have salt. Not so good with salt. We've got it, this has worked here because it's very wet, but when you're using it a little more thickly, the salt can't pull the colour back into itself. That's what salt does. Hygroscopic, so it sucks the colour back into itself. And of course here it can't. It's managed it better with the pink than any other colour. And then what happens when you just add lots of water? You get these gorgeous thin colours. Really rather lovely. Lovely. I wanted to show you, these are the trials then that I would carry out to see what they mix with and how they work and what colours I can get with alizarin crimson and green, alizarin and blue, and alizarin and the pink. And go work your way through the colours, see what colour. I love this, absolutely love this, and this one here. Some of them are just scrumptious. So these colours mix up to make some beautiful, beautiful other colours. Whether you like them or not, neat, it doesn't matter. Look what they can do for you. These are the Gansai Tambi Starry colours, and they're really beautiful again. They glint and they glitter in the light. So they're very, very good for me. I like to use those to decorate outfits and what have you when I'm painting my women. And here we have the Kurotaki Brushes, and lay the colours out just like this. Then you know exactly what, I don't have to keep ploughing through all the colours in the box. I can just look at this and I know immediately what colour I want. I've put my colour charts in here. These are the Daniel Smiths, and I wanted to show you these specifically. I said to you, you know, that we'd look at these here rather than on the other sheet. And when we come into this, let me show you. I said to you I had this passion about Cascade Green, and this is why. Look at that. Look at that. It dissolves and disperses and dispatches itself into these incredible blues and greens. When it comes out of the tube, it's green, but it does this and bleeds into this cerulean blue. I just love it. And then further down, oh, look at that cobalt blue violet. And again, that looks 3D, doesn't it? Because the blue has settled down into the dips of the paper. It's granulated, and the beautiful light violet colour has sat on top. And the Mayan blue has really done the same. It's granulated right down. So if you mix this with other colours, that would be very exciting, because this colour would settle like this, and then the other colours hopefully would sit on top. The other one that gives you a bit of a glint that's really rather lovely, let me move it over so that you can see it. This is Kyanite, Kyanite Genuine, and Kyanite is a stone. It's a beautiful blue stone, and it has mica in it. As a consequence, this is real kyanite. It's the ground up semi-precious stone. And when I move that, I don't think you're going to be able to see it here, it glitters. You can see the mica glitter within the colour. So again, that would be very good painted on top of darker colours, mixed with darker colours. Colour is just so exciting. And until you do this, you don't know what to expect from it. This is the point. This is a test on paper to see if this paper, what it does, how it works. So lift it off, see if it lifts. Write your notes. Salt. What you can mix where, how you can run it out with water. Winsor and Newton colours as opposed to SAA colours. How do they compare? And I have to tell you, very well. Very, very well. Some colours are slightly different. So this is more yellow than the blue that I have here, the Winsor and Newton. And I find the Indian red is more brown. But if you know that, and you've done this, you know that that's the colour you want if you don't want it to be quite so bright. And these are the tests that I did with them. This is black pen. So permanent black pen. Pop it over, just 2 lines like this, and then pop your colours over the top. And you can see that when this colour is thick, this is the Indian red, is really quite opaque. It obliterates the black line. When you mix them together, again, very exciting mixes. Very exciting granulation. And look at that. That's the turquoise with permanent magenta. I have to tell you, this turquoise is another one of my absolutely all-time exquisite colours. It's an SAA, and I absolutely love it. Have a look at it here in this picture that I've painted of my traveller. The strangest thing about this colour, however, is the fact that the colour you're seeing here, and I'm looking at it on my screen next to me, I have an app on my iPad, and that shows me what I'm seeing on the camera, and I can control it from here. And that colour that I'm seeing on the screen is completely different to the colour that you're seeing now, and I find that very, very bizarre. There must be something in this that reacts to a camera lens, or it must fluoresce when I see it with my naked eye. But you looking at that now are not seeing the colour that I'm seeing. And it's rather like the Northern Lights. If you go up to Norway and you look at the Northern Lights, I saw them in the sky as bright, bright white. But when you photograph them, they photograph green. And that's very strange. And this is the same sort of phenomenon. This colour, the turquoise, is exquisite. I love it. I love it. Here we have the graphic tint tests. So again, I've drawn them down and then I've drawn them out with water. And completely different colour when you put the water on them. It's important that you do this, because otherwise when you're sitting outside, if you've got them and you're painting when you're out and about, they don't look anything like they do when you put water on them. So a little test. Black papers and shiny stuff. Really exciting. And so it goes on, everybody. You know, it's just the best thing to do. This is, believe it or not, ink on fairy liquid, a bowl of water and fairy liquid, and you shush it all up until you have lots of bubbles, and then put the ink in on the top of it all and put a piece of paper on top of the bowl. So you need the bubbles above the bowl that you're using, and this is the print that you will get. And that, of course, now, because it's done in ink, is permanent. And that means that it's not going anywhere, and I can use that as a background and have a play with that. That would be very good for one of my skyscapes. Might do that in black at some stage. Can imagine that. Bombay inks, and so on and so on. These were all tests for marker paper that I did just recently, so we needed to know how it would behave. And all of my notes, this one, I thought it had a horrible finish. So just play and practice and try and see where you get with that, but it's worth having this to keep. Recently, I've decided to do something a little different. I used to always have a piece of paper next to me when I was painting, and I have decided that I'm not doing that anymore. I've got this lovely book, and I'm going to use my book for my colour mixes, and in future keep it with me so that I can come into this, and as I mix a lovely colour in the palette, I can pop it on here. Make sure you write it down, because we all think to ourselves, oh, I'll remember that, but you don't. In a year or 2 years' time, trust me, you don't. And I've popped them down here because, again, in the future I might want these beautiful soft pinks, and I've actually written on some of them. You see this mix here? That is so good for the inside of pet portrait ears. Very, very good. And pop it down, write your notes so that you know what you've done. Otherwise this book might just as well be used to light the fire next year. And this is a little exercise that I've done here, and you'll be seeing this on one of my demo videos quite soon. I wanted to show you this. Now, you've seen this before. Those of you who have seen my colours, Know Your Colours DVD video will have come across this book before, and it's my Bible really, The Secret Lives of Colour by Cassia St. Clair. And she has written a story about every colour under the rainbow. There they all are. And you go to the colour you're interested in. Let's choose something that we know. Cerulean. Here's the colour. And then she's written the history of the colour. And some of it, it's not the history necessarily of how it was made. You'll get that too. But if there are funny little stories along the way about your colour, that will be in here too. And it's just my favourite book, Woad. Look at that. All the history about woad, how it was grown, when it was grown, where it started. So, fabulous, fabulous little book. Indigo, violet, cochineal. Cochineal drives me dippy because I collect cacti and I collect succulents, and they have one specific horrible, horrible little pest which comes and eats away at my favourite cacti, and it is a little bug called a mealybug. You gardeners will know exactly what I'm talking about. And that horrible little devil, if you get hold of it and you squish it between your fingers, is this colour, and that is cochineal. Comes from Mexico, bless it. I wish it had stayed there. So chrome yellow and all the history of chrome yellow, poison, and lead tin yellow. All of these colours are there in this lovely little book. This book is one of my other favourites, the Colour Source book. I find that sometimes when I'm painting to order, if somebody wants a commission and they ask me for a specific colour for something and ask for maybe an emerald dress, and I'm sitting there and I think I know what colour emerald is, but it always pays to be sure, always pays to be sure. This is a good book to go to look up emerald and to be able to see it on this colour wheel. And there's the colour, and you know then that you've got the right colour. You can say to the person, is this the colour you're talking about? And then we've got a picture on the other side of the page which gives us a good demonstration of that colour within a picture. Let's go and have a look at another burnt umber. We all know burnt umber, we use burnt umber. So here it is again on the colour wheel. You've got a swatch of the colour, and realistically this is for printers and for graphic designers because you've got all these incredible dots and dashes and numbers here for the technical info and where it is along here. But for you and I as artists, this is a really useful book for me because I then know that I know what I'm talking about and I can't be called out when the picture finally goes to the person and they say, oh, that's a bit orange, isn't it? Or that's a bit blue. We know here that we've got the colour. So you have the colour and then you have the history behind it and examples of the colours and, you know, lovely, lovely little bits of snippets of information. So, you know, he says here, the terracotta brick and bistre banding on this building's circular design is clearly indebted to Frank Lloyd Wright's Guggenheim Museum in New York, built during 1937 in modernist style. And it just expands our horizons a bit, doesn't it? And gives us the information that we want. Interesting information. I love all this behind this tube of paint that we use. There we go. So those two are useful. Colour mixing, my book and my trials books, really, really useful. Now, how about a couple of really interesting, unusual facts? Interesting fact number one. Let me introduce you to Quinacridone Magenta. It's a beautiful mauvey, a reddish mauve, and it's warm and bright and exciting. It's a lovely colour. Here we go. That's it in the palette. So if I mix it with a little bit of water, give you an idea of what's going on there, isn't that just yummy? What I want to do here is put some water on the paper. You can see it on the paper then, on the bright white. Lots of water. The magentas, the quinacridones were developed back in the 1980s, 70s, 80s for the car companies actually and for industry because it was a hard colour that could be used for municipal buildings and car paint, and the paint companies went in there and used the colour themselves and developed it from there for us as artists. Rather beautiful. Gorgeous. Quinacridone, quin, it means 5 rings. It's to do with the technicals of how the atoms and what have you are put together. So there you go. It's the chemistry of it. But that colour, what I want to tell you about this, you won't believe me. You are looking at Quinacridone Magenta, but you are not actually seeing it. This colour is not, categorically not, on the light spectrum. Therefore, you cannot actually see it. But our brain is clever enough to know that this colour sits between 2 colours that we can see, and it makes it up. So that colour we are probably all seeing ever so slightly differently, but you are not technically, physically seeing magenta. Interesting fact number 2. Let's talk about blue, the colour blue, and specifically today we're going to talk about eyes. Did you know that brown eyes get their colour from melanin, and that's the same pigment that colours your skin? But blue eyes don't have any pigment in them. Blue eyes get their colour the same way water and the sky get their blue colour. They scatter the light so that more blue light reflects back out. The coloured part of the eye is called the iris, and the front layer of the iris is called the stroma, and it's made up of overlapping fibres and cells. If there is no pigment at all in this front layer, the fibres scatter and absorb some of the longer wavelengths of light that come in, and more blue light gets back out, and this is what makes the eyes appear to be blue. Since blue eyes get their colour from the light that's coming in and being reflected back out, they really can appear as different colours depending on the lighting conditions. So on some occasions your eyes can appear to be more blue than others. And that mystery about eyes changing colour, did you know that babies don't have much pigment in their irises when they're born? And this is why their eyes are often blue. Well, they're always blue, I think, aren't they? More pigment actually accumulates in the iris over the first few months of a child's life, and then their eyes become less blue or even turn completely brown. And here's another strange fact, would you believe? For those of you with a literary bent, you may remember, if you ever read Homer's Odyssey, that he refers to the sea as the wine-dark sea. It's romantic, isn't it? But actually, he called it that because blue was the very last colour that historians can identify as being named. It was the last colour that anybody ever named. It had always been, I suppose, the sea or the sky. But to give it a name, it wasn't actually named until the very last knockings of humanity's growth. How about that? The colour blue. Interesting. There we are, so that's the end of another visit. Thank you so much for coming. It's always nice to see you in the studio. I wanted to say goodbye personally and just to say thank you. See you next time. Bye for now.